Hello, retro fans. Yet another, well, let's say, short episode, and this has been requested as well. This time by Slam Dickens. I hope the pronunciation is almost right. If not, I'm excuse myself. And he has caught that, let's say, in one of my previous videos, I have used a custom built controller for Messiah, and he was interested in what kind of device this is and how I have built this. And well, now I thought let's have a look at this one, and well, without many words, let's jump into this topic. So, and here we are. And as usual, let's start with a view on my desk. And I had to broaden the view angle a little bit because I've got so much stuff on it. And as you can see, I got two of them. And maybe a little bit background. As I started discovering making sounds, music with Messiah, which was about 3 years ago, I quickly came up with the problem or the situation that I wanted to control certain parameters of, for example, the monosynth. And one way was to use a joystick with integrated pedals, for example, Rumble in the Jungle, like this one. Here we got pedal 1 and pedal 2. Or to get the original pedals that have been built for the, I think, VIC-20 and the Commodore C64. But all of this was a bit too clunky and not as compact as I wanted to be, and or I wanted to have. So I thought, well, this can't be rocket science, so let's build yourself one. And I quickly came up with the situation that within Messiah, you have different scenarios, so to say. For example, in the drummer, you can use just two pedals. I think in the 303 in the bass line, you can just use two pedals. But monosynth is supporting 4 pedals, and sequencer isn't supporting pedals at all, but the 1351 mouse. And I really wanted to avoid plugging and unplugging all the devices every time I'm going to change the module within Messiah. So I thought, well, there must be a way to combine all of this. And the interesting thing is that the joystick and the pedals can be run in parallel. So there's actually no need. But as I have shown, having a joystick with pedals is quite a huge device and not very useful, especially if you're going to use more than one C64 for your purpose. And so I started to draft out a couple of ideas, and then started to order parts. And quite surprisingly, getting some potentiometers isn't that hard. And even if you have some wishes or requirements and quality, it's actually not a tricky thing. And getting a joystick button isn't hard either, but getting a small joystick was really, really tricky and still is. And as I said, one of the restrictions was space. I wanted to build something that isn't occupying that much space, especially with the idea in mind that I may end up with 2, 3, 4 of those controllers. So I was digging a little bit deeper through the different electronic shops until I found this one. And this is indeed very, very nice and very compact, but very expensive. And I really have searched quite a long time, especially during the last days, weeks to find an alternative or find a different source, but it appears to be impossible to get this one below a €20, $20 price tag, and most of the shops are listing this one with a price of €25 or something like this. So, and the main tricky thing appears to be that it is very shallow, so to say. It's not very deep, and therefore it's not eating up that much space in the device. And yeah, and then I started to combine all those things, and I came up with the idea, okay, I want to have the pedals, I want to have the joystick with the button, and I want to have the mouse connector, and I want to switch between the pedals and the mouse. So, and how this is going to work within Mssiah, we will going to have a look right now. So let's go for this one. Oh, that is a little bit unexpected. Now we're back. And I'm actually in the diagnostics for ports. And here we can move the mouse, and we can see that on joystick port 2, we got some variation of the pedal signals. And if we're going to switch to pedals, we can use the pedals to adjust the level of our analog inputs. And we have, as mentioned already, the joystick, and so we are able to control every single function within Mssiah. And this is indeed very, very comfortable. And as I said, if you switch between the different devices, if you go to a sequencer, for example, then I think we have to press Commodore key to start it with the mouse. Yep. So, and if you're going to switch to the mouse, now we have mouse control, and we can even enable the second button, right mouse button. Here we go. So we got this context menu, and we got this control functions with the other mouse key. So this is indeed very, very comfortable. And then we can jump out of this. There we go. And then we can go to monosynth. Takes a little while. Quite surprised. There we go. And here we have to go to controls. Control potentiometers. On. And let's keep it like this. I'm going to talk about in a second. And now we have some fancy jumping values all over the place. And now we can assign the different pedals or potentiometers to different functions within Mssiah. So let's see. It is a little bit odd because you got two groups, and now we got 4 groups. Now I got it. Yeah. Okay, so you can define 4 groups of settings you're going to use with your pedals. That's very comfortable. And we got actually assign 1x, 1y, 2x, and 2y, which refers to the direction of the pedals connected to the C64, which is a little bit strange, but after a while you really get used to it. And therefore we can say that 2x and 2y is going to be those 2 parameters, and I think that's the I'm still in mouse mode, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so group 1 is the bottom and group 2 is the top, so that we can now change the pulse width, for example. And if we go for 2y going to be the frequency, perhaps. Nope. That's actually this one, probably. There we go. So, and now we can control those two parameters with our pedals. And if you are a little bit annoyed by these jumping values, well, this is basically based on the way it works. So as I said, the pedals are nothing else than an external potentiometer, and the way the C64 is kind of digitizing the signal is that within the SID there is a small capacitor, actually 2 or 4, yeah, and they are charged, and they are charged over these external resistors. And the higher the resistance is, the longer it takes for charging this little capacitor. And the SID is actually just checking how often this capacitor is charged within a certain period of time. And since this is a lot of analog technique and a lot of cables and connectors and all that things, this signal is not very stable at all. And therefore we have this sort of little bit nervous parameters, but this can be fixed if you go to settings and if you go to set L shift to on. And now if we go out of this, we can see that our parameters are sort of freezed. And if we press the shift button and then we turn the knob and we release the shift button, then our parameters are stable. And this is an interesting parameter as well, because if we're going to reassign our pedal or potentiometer to a new parameter, then usually this parameter jumps to the value the real potentiometer has right now. And this can be a little bit annoying within a live set, so to say. And therefore you have to keep it in mind that as soon as we press the shift key, this parameter is going to change to what we have set here. And therefore it's a little bit tricky to manage. And I think that's the main reason for having those groups here, because now we can set a certain set of parameters and then we can use this within a patch. And if you're going to move on to a new patch or something like this, then we can shift this, and therefore you can sort of avoid that you have some jumping parameters within your live set, for example, or something like this. But usually I really recommend to mute the channel. You have this C64 on, set your set of parameters, and then you fade it back in your set to avoid that you have some strange effects, unexpected effects. And yeah, so that's basically the main function of this stuff. And sometimes I just go for the joystick control. And if you go jump out, then we can use the joystick to change the parameters as well. And if you press the button, then it changes the parameters more quickly. And therefore, that's the main reason for having this button on this little device. So as you can see, I built two of them, one with this mouse connector and one without the mouse connector. And for the second one, I built a 3D printed a plug case, whatever we want to call this. And the main reason is that the C64 board is expecting, let's say, a little bit longer connectors. And I can sort of demonstrate this with C64 board. So let's move to the desk. You can see actually something. And the way those cases are working is actually that there are some clamps holding this connector in place. And if you're going to connect this to the C64, then and there's a case on a board like this. It is working quite fine, but on a case we can just insert it about this way, and therefore it is always a little bit loose. And what I experienced in the past is that I kind of lost those connectors every now and then. So I decided to create my own little case where I have actually both connectors inside, not two. And I sort of kind of glued those plugs into it and used this 3 screws to really bring it into position. And now we can see this is insert completely, and it is staying in place much better than the other version. And I do not have to fiddle around which is 1 and which is 2. Here I have markings on the cables, and here I have some very dim markings on the plug case, and I'm going to replace them as well now, since this is working very fine. So that much about this topic. And now we're going to have a look inside, that you can see why I have built just one this way. And the main reason is actually a little bit comparable to my 4 input YC switch box, that in theory everything looks fine until you start to solder all those wires, and then things become a bit messy. So let's see if we can get this opened. And here we can see what I've done so far. And the thing is that we have to switch the analog signal of 2 potentiometers to the sub-D connector here in order to have either the mouse or the pedal. And that's the reason for searching for this very small profile joystick, because all those wires have to fit into the same space, and the joystick is just beneath this little plate here. And I have used sort of a plastic whatever cover to hold the potentiometers in place, because otherwise they would have raised a little bit more, because the screw to hold them in place would be on the top of this case. And so I had the chance to make to place the screw below the surface of this case, get them a little bit lower, and have this very nice, let's say, kind of closing or getting in contact potentiometer caps or knobs, whatever we want to call this. So, and since this was really a challenge to solder all that stuff here, I decided to make just one of it. And that's usually totally fine. And I think as soon as I've switched to this kind of connector, then I'm really free to use this one on whatever C64 I'm going to need this. And I'm going to create another connector, which I'm going to add to this or replace to this cases. And I have the second box on the second C64. In the meantime, this whole concept has kind of lost of significance or importance whatsoever, because the main problem with this whole approach is, if you're going to use your C64 Messiah setup in combination with your DAW, for example, with Ableton or Renoise or whatsoever, and you want to, let's say, automate your parameters and you want to record your parameters, this is outside of your DAW. There's absolutely no chance to feed the information back to your DAW out of the C64, since the Messiah MIDI is just an in, there's no out or something like this. And if you're going to record something live, or if you are fiddling with your sounds and you want to recreate what you have done, then well, you simply have to remember what you have done with those knobs. And after a while, I just started to kind of abandon this whole idea, and I use basically launch pads. As you can see, those two, I think APC MK40, and there are a lot of knobs on it which I can route to synth card or to Mssiah, for example. And if I'm going to turn them, then I can record this, and then everything is reproducible and changeable and all that stuff, yada yada. So actually I'm just using those boxes if I'm going to work on sounds, if I just want to play around a little bit without having the need of operating the whole DAW, operating Ableton or whatsoever. So if I'm just in the mood to switch on my C64 and having a, let's say, relaxing, inspiring, creative monosynth session, then I'm going to use the box, because then I can easily assign those parameters to those, easily assign the pedals to those parameters which I want to work with. And this is actually quite fine. And I keep one of those on my desk just behind me to quickly control Mssiah at all. Especially if I jump between the modules, then it's very, very comfortable to have some sort of joystick on it, because without a joystick, sequencer is almost unusable. So you can use the function keys to move your mouse around, but no, not really. So it's really nice to have at least a joystick there. And as I said, if you just want to fiddle around in monosynth a little bit, then it's really comfortable to have this, well, pedals. So to answering the question what this would cost to build again, as I said, the joystick is the most expensive part with about 25 euros. The potentiometers, I think they are just 1 or 2 euros each or something like this. The switch isn't that expensive, 2 or 3 euros or something like this. The socket connectors, about the same range. The case wasn't that cheap as far as I remember, but the next time I may just print one myself, because then I can have a bit more space. The thing was that I got either this case or the next one was much bigger than this one. And I was really looking for some, let's say, angled case as well. And therefore I ended up with this one. But I think the next time I just simply build one myself and print it with the 3D printer. And yeah, that's actually fine. So my guess is actually that we may end up with 35 euros for all the parts, plus the time it takes to build all that stuff. And therefore that's not really expensive, but it's, I think, surprisingly more expensive than we may expect. But I'm using those boxes for about, well, as I said, 3 years now, and they're working fine, and I never regret that I have built them at all. So, and that's actually all I have to say for this episode. I think it was some sort of interesting, and I hopefully have answered the questions that has been raised in the comment section. If not, feel free to use the comment section and add your thoughts to it. Maybe you find a better source for this type of joystick, for example, or you have a different idea. I even considered to build one myself with a 3D printed part, something like this, and some micro switches, like the Competition Pro Mini, for example. That could be an approach as well. I just have to figure out how to create something to bring it back to the middle, because here there's a little spring inside that does the centering, and otherwise they are just 4 micro switches. That's not really rocket science, but well, I keep to lose myself in such projects. and never get the other stuff done. But yeah, that's the way it is actually. So as I said, feel free to use the comment section. I'm really looking forward what you have to say about this, and thanks again for requesting this sort of episode. That's really helpful for me to see what you are what you want me to do. And what I've forgot the last episodes, I want to say a big thank you for all people on Patreon and here on YouTube who are supporting me by joining the channel membership or by joining the Patreon program, let's say. And you can support me on Ko-Fi as well. All the links are in the description or section of the video. So feel free to help me create new stuff for new episodes. And thank you very much for all the comments and ideas you have sent over the last videos. And well, that's actually the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you for the next episode, which is, well, hopefully coming quite soon. Who knows? Again, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.